A lot of people think that high school is home to some of the most fun and memorable moments of your life. But for me, I absolutely hated high school. And this video was originally titled Why I Hated School So Much because I was gonna talk about elementary school and middle school as well. But I honestly had so much to say about high school that I had to make it its own video. Now, there were a few good moments that came out of high school, but for the most part, high school was pretty mid. I didn't go watch any football games or basketball games. If there was ever a dance or a homecoming, I was never there. I just didn't really participate in anything. And on top of all that, I had an Android. And not just any Android, but an old Android. And I would like to apologize to my parents in advance because they love their Androids, but having an Android in high school sucked. Best believe I was taking no photos, it was next to impossible to get a girl's number, and worst of all, I was in no group chats. People was serious about the messages turning green in the GC. There was literally a time I was in a class that only had like 14 people in it, and this guy was literally going around and was like, yo, I'm making a whole group chat with the class, what's your number? And I was like, oh, that sounds fun, but I do have an Android. This dude looked me dead in my face and went, oh, and then kept it pushing. Which, by the way, we'll get more on that particular class later. But the one thing I did have going for me in high school was the track team. And this was one of the only things I ever looked forward to while I was in high school. I was bonding with people, I was at my peak performance, so my coach was having me run at meets that only the top runners go to. But then the year got cut short because COVID happened. And so all of my sophomore year was completely online. I'm honestly still not convinced that my sophomore year wasn't just a dream because I do not remember a thing from it. And this was during the peak of COVID, so there was no sports going on in the school. And during my junior year, things were slowly getting back to normal, but I didn't continue with the track team because I did something else instead. Now for this next part, viewers' discretion is advised because this might offend a lot of people, and if you're a very sensitive person, I highly recommend you cover your ears for the next 5 seconds. I got a job. I worked at a Kohl's and all I did was just go around the store picking out clothes for online orders and then packaging them. And it's crazy because every time my parents picked me up, they would ask me how my shift was and I would always have a story to tell them. But looking back at it, I don't remember a thing from that job. But during my junior year, I was taking 2 of the hardest classes I had ever taken in my life. One of those classes was physics, which was pretty hard, but not as hard as advanced algebra 2. And this is one of those moments where if I ever met my past self, I would just what's wrong with you, man? Because there was literally zero benefit in taking that class. The decision to take that class was purely made out of ego. Oh, I'm too smart for algebra 2. I need advanced algebra 2. There was not a single time throughout that whole year where I would walk into that class and then leave the class not confused. They especially lost me when there was a whole unit about imaginary numbers. No, I'm not trolling. This is what it looks like. And the worst part about this class was that this was the only class at the time that I was actually getting homework from. Every other class that I was taking followed the same motto of whatever you don't finish in class is homework. But this was the only class that I was taking where we had classwork and at the end the teacher would give us homework. And the homework would always be this double-sided sheet with 10 questions on each side. And it would usually take me at least 5, sometimes 10 minutes just to solve one problem because I always had to look up how to do it and make sure I was doing it right. So I would usually spend up to 2 hours just doing homework for this one class. I had never felt so stupid while taking a math class in my life. And let's not forget that I had 5 other classes to worry about on top of this class. So one morning while I was in this class, my brain was more fried than ever trying to understand what was going on. And once when we got to doing our classwork, I literally had no idea what to do. It was especially cooked when while we were doing our classwork, I even asked the teacher for help, and as she was helping me through the problem, I was still confused. Damn. And there was this dude that sat in front of me that was helping me out throughout the whole school year. And while we were doing our work, I even asked him, like, bro, do you even know what's going on? And he was like, nah, man, I'm lost. And when he said that, a big ball of stress just shot up into my chest. Because at the time, I also had another project that I had to get done for my physics class that I knew was gonna take forever. And so as I was staring at this paper, there was just more and more stress building up. And I looked up at bro and I was like, yo, I think I'm having a panic attack. And he was like, yeah, man, this is mad confusing. But little did he know, I was actually having a panic attack. So the bell rings and I go into my English class. Now the teacher only takes like 5 minutes explaining what we were supposed to do that day. And as soon as she was done and let us do our assignments, I immediately go up to her desk and was like, hey, can I talk to you outside for a second? And she was like, yeah, of course. And I remember it like it was yesterday, y'all. We go out in the hallway, she closes the door and goes, what's up? And I go, I think I'm having a panic attack. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I started crying, bro. like full on sobbing. And throughout all of my teenage years, other than my parents, that was the only person I ever cried in front of. And given the situation I was in, that was probably the perfect person to cry in front of, because she handled it so well. We started just walking around the hallway while she had me explaining everything that was going on. And this was during a lunch period, so she was like, hey, you should stop by for lunch. And so that's what I did. And she was playing Animal Crossing videos on the smartboard while we were talking about mental health and just life. She helped me feel so calm and reassured after that, and she is without a doubt one of my favorite teachers of all time for that. Her name was Miss Gonzalez, by the way, y'all. If I'm ever gonna do name drops on this channel, it's only gonna be good, positive name drops. W Miss Gonzalez. But anyways, that incident led to me working less days a week at my job, and I would eventually quit that job after working there for around 10 months. And one of the main reasons for that was because at the time, I was getting paid minimum wage for the state I was living in, which was $11 an hour. And I heard that when you're getting paid minimum wage, once when you work there for a full year, you get a guaranteed raise. And one of the friends that I made while working there eventually got up to a year, and he got a raise of $11.13. Yeah, so after seeing that, I knew it wasn't worth it staying there for the whole year, and I would end up getting another job at a steakhouse. Now, I actually have a lot of stories from this job that's worthy of its own video, but the problem is that I literally just quit that job in April of this year, so a lot of those stories are fresh, and there could very well be some people from that job watching this video right now. So if this video does well, y'all can remind me again in the future. But to start off my senior year, I was gonna have a reduced schedule up until my parents realized, wait a minute, how are you gonna get home? Because even though I had my license, I didn't have a car at the time, and none of my close friends had their license. And so on my first day of school, I had to go to the counselor's office to pick 2 classes to fill in for those reduced classes. One of them was a counselor's aid period, which was basically just a free period. And from there on, there was only 3 possible electives left for me to choose. So I went ahead and just picked sociology because it sounded pretty cool on paper, like you get to learn about human behavior and stuff. But little did I know that actually ended up being the biggest mistake I've made in all of my senior year. Remember that class I was telling y'all about earlier that only had like 14 people in it? Well, this was the one. And there's a reason why it only had 14 people in it. Because this elective was absolute buns. It was basically a sugar-coated history class. And we would get a lot of assignments from this class too. Mind you, I was taking government as well because I needed to pass that class in order to graduate. And I was definitely getting the most work from that class. And sometimes my other job would schedule me on the weekdays, so I would stay after school and get some homework done before just walking over there because it was literally right across the street. And it was probably the most annoying feeling in the world going, I finally finished my government homework. Now I have to finish my sociology homework. Like there was so many times, especially towards the end of the year, where I thought to myself, what if I just stopped taking this class serious? Like I literally didn't even have to take this class. Why am I getting less homework in my math, English, and science class than my sociology class that was supposed to be an elective? But I'm not gonna lie to y'all, there was one good thing that came out of that class. So on one period, my teacher randomly decided that we go outside and play musical chairs. Okay. We played one regular game, and then on the second game, my teacher added a twist, where if you couldn't find a chair in time, you had the option of sitting on someone of the opposite gender's lap. What? No, I'm not trolling. So like halfway through the game, I was able to get a chair, but this one girl was not, and she comes over and sits on my lap. She even wrapped her arms around my neck, and my head was leaning on her shoulder. And let me remind y'all, I've never had a girlfriend before, so this was the first time something like this ever happened to me. And I had no time to acknowledge what was going on because there was literally people watching me, and I was in the middle of a game of musical chairs that I was trying to win. But dang, bro, that girl was pretty too. And now that I think about it, there was definitely times she was flirting with me and I didn't even realize it. Oh well. But as the year went on, I started realizing more and more why seniors were referred to as sleepy seniors. Because I was literally sleep deprived every single day and was falling asleep in every class. Because like I said before, there was a lot of times throughout the week where I would stay after school to do homework and immediately go work at my other job. And by the time I got home, it would already be like 10 p.m. and I had zero free time. So I would end up just going on my phone until 12 a.m. and then waking up at 6 a.m. But it was a good thing that most of the classes that I was taking were really easy. And I would literally play a game of how fast can I get my work done so I can get the most sleep in this class. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to play that game in my government class because my teacher would spend almost the whole class teaching before he let us do our assignments. So I played a different game instead, which was how long can I go without nodding off? And there was a good handful of times throughout the year where my teacher would go, Xavier, Wakey wakey. But yeah, other than that, nothing crazy really happened during my senior year. Oh yeah, that's right, there was prom. Yeah, prom was cool. Of course I didn't have a date or anything, I just went with the boys. Here's a picture of me with my prom suit on. But I would end up graduating with a 3.5 GPA and an advanced diploma. Here's a list of all the people that care. But yeah, y'all, that was somewhat my high school experience. I really only scratched the surface. So if you guys want more stories like this where I talk about my high school experience, y'all let me know. The video you'll see on screen is a video that YouTube thinks you'll like, so you should definitely give it a watch.